Hello, this is Erick Widman at Passage Immigration Law, and welcome to another live Q&A session. We're glad you joined us. We've got another series of great questions about the U.S. immigration system. So we're going to jump right into it. And the first question is something that's close to the heart of an immigration lawyer because someone writes, I'm writing for a friend. He said that he would like to come into the US through his professional credentials as a lawyer. He wants to study law in the US and hopefully practice in the country. How is this possible? Well, we're very glad you asked. And options are a little different depending on whether someone is already a lawyer or is planning to become a lawyer in the future through study, getting an LLM, for example. And so let's take the instance where this person might already be an attorney in a country outside the US. And in that case, he or she will have to get licensed eventually in the US, and there's certain steps for that. But you could open up and get employment as a lawyer in a few different ways. For example, you could be employed on an H-1B visa, specialty occupation visa. You could, if you're a Canadian or Mexican, come in on a TN visa. Or an Australian could use an E3 visa, which is like a specialty occupation visa for Australians. If you're extraordinary, and most of us aren't, sadly, but if someone is an amazing law professor at the Sorbonne who's written the treatise on international human rights, for example, maybe that attorney could get an extraordinary ability visa, O1 visa in the US. There are also green card options. And if an employer petitions for you, you can get a green card directly that way. Or there is an E2 treaty trader visa and E2, E1 visas, but the E2 investor visa would be the best of those two options. And that's also a possibility. I've known some lawyers to set up E2 visas with an investment in the US when they open their own law office. So there are some solid options. But if your friend is not yet an attorney and wants to become licensed in the US by going to school first, there are some solid options there too. A common pathway is to go with an F1 visa, F as in Frank, and then pursue an LLM degree. Most law schools have foreign national students getting an LLM. They're already often attorneys, practicing lawyers in their home country who get an LLM. But if your friend has not passed any bar exams or licensing exams outside the US, wants to study law and get a JD in the United States, that's definitely possible too. So that is an F1 visa. And then your friend could get a job and be on track to getting a green card if an employer petitions for him or her. Also, there's a family-based avenue. If your friend marries or has a close family relationship who could petition for him in the United States. Okay, that was the lawyer question. I like that a lot. Let's look now at the next question. My mom would like to visit me in the country, but I do not know how US immigration works because I've only been here for 7 months now. Is it possible to get here? Is it possible for her to come here as a visitor? And you are a nursing aide. Thank you for the question. So if your mom wants to visit you, there's a few options. The most common option is to apply for a B1, B2 visitor visa. And that allows people from all over the world to come here for up to 6 months at a time, as long as they have non-immigrant intent, go through the process of filing for a DS-160 visa application with the embassy. Then they go to an interview and they're able to quite often get a visitor visa. The problem is that it's really tough these days in many places all over the world to get a visa interview set up. The delay is often 6 months, 9 months, a year. So that there's a long line. In addition, there's still a high refusal rate when people apply for these visitor visas. It's often arbitrary. It's often just quite difficult to get through the process, get approved, because you have to show, the burden is on the applicant to show that she does not have immigrant intent and that she's otherwise eligible. So that can be difficult. Besides the visitor visa, B1, B2 visitor visa, if your mom is from a country, a developed nation typically, where there is the visa waiver program available, ESTA is available, that is a great option. She'd be able to come and visit you for 90 days at a time. You don't need a visa for that, but you do need a return ticket to get back to your home country. And she must not have immigrant intent either and show sufficient ties and connections to her home country. Hope that was helpful. On to a final question. Is there any way for an Afghan to immigrate to the US? Absolutely. And Afghans, like so many other individuals around the world who would love to come to the US, there's a few special options for Afghans, and there are the common standard ways that are available to almost every country. So the common ways are through a family member, or through a business, or through a humanitarian pathway. Those are the three main categories to come to the US, to immigrate, and to come as there's coming as a refugee under the humanitarian category. A few special options besides asylum, refugee, the special immigrant visa for Afghans. Many service members who in the Afghan army served alongside US special forces, the US service members. You could get an SIV visa, special immigrant visa, but it's been very frustrating for so many thousands of applicants have been stuck. The US government has done a bad job of following through with that SIV process. And our law firm gets lots of calls from frustrated Afghans who were told things would be going a lot faster than they are. They're stuck in administrative processing. Simply, visa processing is shut down for them. So the SIV is theoretically possible. Asylum is possible. Registering as a refugee and going through that process can be possible. You typically can't choose where you're going to end up. There's another option called humanitarian parole. And humanitarian parole allows someone to enter into the US. And this was done after the fall of the Taliban, and things fell apart last summer, and the US botched that job so badly. Humanitarian parole was used to get Afghans out, and now we're trying to figure out, the US government is trying to figure out how to correctly process them. There's been talk of an Afghan Adjustment Act. So that hopefully will allow for immigration. Humanitarian parole is still available, and as I mentioned before, business or family-based options. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to connect. Definitely let us know if you have any other questions, and take care.